Story number 2. Uncle Wiggily Goes Fishing. At first, after he found himself shut off in the bear's dark closet where he left him in the story before this, poor Uncle Wiggily didn't know what to think. He just sat there on the edge of a chair and he tried to look around and see something, but it was too black, and so he couldn't. Perhaps this is only a joke, thought the old gentleman rabbit, though I never knew a black bear to joke before. Perhaps it is. I'll ask him. And so Uncle Wiggily, he called out, "Is this a joke, Mr. Bear?" "Not a bit of it," was the growling answer. "You'll soon see what's going to happen to you. I'm getting the fire ready now." "Getting the fire ready for what, the adventure or my fortune?" asked the rabbit, for he still hoped the bear was only joking with him. "Ready to have you for dinner," was the reply. "That's what the fire is for." And the bear, he gnashed his teeth together, something terrible, arr, arr. And with his sharp claws, he pulled big splinters off the stump, and with them he started a fire in the stove. The blazing fire, it made it a little brighter in the hollow stump, which was the black bear's den. Well, Uncle Wiggily, he could look out of a crack in the door and see what a savage fellow this shaggy bear was. That bear just hid in the stump, waiting for helpless animals to come along, and then he tricked him into jumping down inside of it. There wasn't a word of truth about him having sore eyes or about him having to wear dark spectacles either. "Oh my, I guess this is the end of my adventures," thought the rabbit gentleman. "I should have been more careful. Well, I wish I could see Sammy and Susie Littletail before the bear eats me, but I'm afraid I can't. I shouldn't have jumped down in here." But as Uncle Wiggily happened to think of Sammy Littletail, the boy rabbit, he also thought of something else. And this was that Sammy had put something in the old gentleman rabbit's valise that morning before his uncle had started off. "If you ever get in trouble, Uncle Wiggily," Sammy had said, "this may come in useful for you." Uncle Wiggily, he didn't look at the time to see what it was that his nephew put in the valise, but he made up his mind he would do so right now. And so he opened up his satchel, and there, among other things, was some string and a long piece of thin but strong rope. And pinned to that was a note which read, "Dear Uncle Wiggily, this is good to help you get out of a window in case of a fire." "My goodness," exclaimed Uncle Wiggily, "that's fine. There the bear is making a fire to cook me, and with this rope I can get away from it. Now, if there's only a window in this closet, I'm all right." And so he looked, and there was a window. And with his crutch, Uncle Wiggily, he raised it up. And then he threw out his satchel, and he tied the rope to the windowsill, and being a strong old gentleman rabbit, he crawled out of the window, and he slid down that rope. And Uncle Wiggily, he got out, just as the bear opened the closet door to grab him, and he put him in the pot. But when the savage black creature saw his fine rabbit dinner getting away, he was as angry as a mad bull. He really was. And so, "Here, come back here," cried the bear. But of course, Uncle Wiggily, he knew better than to come back. He slid down that rope to the ground, and then he cut off as much of the rope as he could, and he put it in his pocket, for he didn't know when he might need it again. And then, catching up with his valise, he ran on and on and on and on before the bear could get to him. And it was still quite a dark place in which Uncle Wiggily found himself, for you see, he was underground. He was down beneath the roots of a stump. But he looked ahead, and off in the distance, he saw a little glimmer of light, and then he knew that he could get out of this awful underground terrible place. And limping on his crutch and carrying his valise, he went on and on and on and on and on. And pretty soon he came out of a dark cave, and he found himself in the bank of a nice little brook that was running over mossy green stones. "Ha! This is better than being in a bear's den," exclaimed the old gentleman rabbit. "My, I was so frightened that I forgot about my rheumatism hurting me. That was quite an adventure, all right, and Sammy was a good boy to think of that strong rope. Now what shall I do next?" Well, Uncle Wiggily, he sat down on the bank of the brook, and he looked in the water. And then he happened to see a fish jump up to catch a bug, and so he said to himself, "I guess I will go fishing just for fun. But if I do happen to catch any fish, I think I'll put them right back in the water again, for I don't need any fish. I have some lettuce, and I have some cabbage sandwiches, and I have some peanut butter cakes that Susie's mama put in a cracker box for me." Well, Uncle Wiggily, he looked in his valise to make sure his lunch was safe, and then taking a bent pin from under his vest, he fastened it to a part of the string Sammy had given him. And then he fastened the string to a pole, and he was ready to go fishing. But he needed something to make the fishes bite. That is, to bite the pin hook, and not bite him, Uncle Wiggily that being. Oh, I guess they'll like a bit of sweet cracker, Uncle Wiggily thought, and so he put some sweet cracker on the end of his pinhook and he threw it towards the water. Well, it fell in with a splash, and it made a lot of circles, like Ring Around the Rosies. And the rabbit, he sat there looking at them, sort of nodding, half asleep, and wondering what adventure would happen to him next, and where he would stay that night. All of a sudden, he felt something tugging at that hook and at his line. "Oh, I've got a fish! I got a fish!" he cried, as he lifted up the pole. Well, up out of the water, with a sizzling rush, flew the string and the sweet cracker bait. And the next minute out leaped the big, savage alligator that escaped from the circus. "Oh, no! So you tried to catch me, eh?" the alligator shouted Uncle Wiggily. "No, no, no, if you please," said the rabbit. I was after some fish." "And I'm after you," cried the alligator. And scrambling up the bank, the alligator made a jump for Uncle Wiggily, and with one sweep of his kinky, scaly tail, he flopped and he threw the old gentleman rabbit and his crutch and valise right up into the top of a big old tree that grew near the brook. "Well, there you'll stay until I get ready to eat you," exclaimed the alligator, and he stood up on the end of his tail under the tree and opened his mouth as wide as he could, so that if Uncle Wiggily fell down, he'd fall into it, just like down a funnel, you know. Well, the poor old gentleman rabbit, he clung to the topmost tree branch, wondering how in the world he was going to escape from this awful alligator. Oh, it was a dreadful position to be in. But please don't worry, and don't stay awake over it, because I'll find a way to get Uncle Wiggily safely down out of this. And in the story after this, the milkman will leave me some sour cream for the pussycat's lemonade. I'll tell you about Uncle Wiggily and the Black Crow.